and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many faces from around New Mexico, and we are really fortunate today to also have some really great leaders from around the country who are part of the North American Association for Environmental Education Affiliate Network. So welcome everyone. I am Eileen Everett, the Executive Director of Environmental Education of New Mexico, and I am so excited to be talking about this outdoor learning bill. I'm going to have a hard time staying in my seat because this has been so many years in the making. And it's so incredible where we are now in this process. And the next few weeks are really critical for us to gain even more support to see the successful passage of this bill. So our intention today is to share lots of information. We're going to be throwing a lot of information at you. We'll make this recording available. We also have an advocacy toolkit available on our website with many different links that we'll be introducing you to today. So don't feel like you need to write notes on all the pieces. We'll be following up to make sure that you have access to all this information that's shared today. And I'm going to get us rolling with how we typically start many of our conversations and events here at EENM, which is by really jumping into some background and really getting into the why this outdoor learning bill and why now. And I really want to start this conversation with emphasizing that there have been so many voices, community voices, so many minds that have gone into incredible thinking over the last few years. We have had now over 45 community conversations over the last 4 years that have led to some really great thinking that's gone into this outdoor learning bill. And if there's only one thing that you remember that I share today, it's this, that there have been so many incredible voices, youth, parents, teachers, educators, interested community members, people in interconnected interests like outdoor recreation, conservation, climate, environmental justice, local food, who have contributed to the thinking that's gone into this bill. And that we really need your voice now. We need your voice to show up and show support for this bill so that we can see over the next few weeks we're almost there, and we need your help to cross the finish line to really see this outdoor learning program realized. I'm going to do a quick overview to really get into the why of this bill. And there is just no way to really do justice to the many years and the many voices who have contributed to this effort in so many incredible ways. So I do want to be really transparent and highlight, this is going to be a very high level overview. If you want to learn more about our community-centered processes as an organization and how we love partnering with different groups like Wild Friends, who we're going to hear from, who's co-hosting with us today, please feel free to visit our website. You can reach us through social media. Here's my email address, my phone number. If you have any questions or want to discuss any of these pieces more, please feel free to reach out. So a little bit of background of what got us here today. And again, this is going to be, there's a lot in here, so this is just super high level for us. So as an organization, we began in 2018 hosting community conversations with the question, what needs to change for New Mexico to support daily equitable access to the outdoors and environmental learning for all kids pre-K through 12th grade age? And from those community conversations, one of the key pieces that we heard directly from the community was a need for support around leadership development and systems thinking. And in 2020, we launched the EENM Fellowship Program. We now have served 2 different cohorts, a total of 36 fellows, some of whom are joining us today, who represent not just education and aren't just teachers and informal educators, but again, these interconnected interests, conservation, recreation, environmental justice. And we have brought those 36 individuals through a whole transformational leadership program and have used systems thinking to really dig into the information that we've heard in these community conversations. In 2020, we were so fortunate to see Wild Friends, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes, work with students across the state to use their voice in supporting Senate Memorial 1, which developed an outdoor classrooms interagency task force in support of outdoor classrooms for K through 12 schools, as well as asking the governor to declare an outdoor learning day, which ended up being an outdoor learning week. Moving then through 2021, we were really fortunate to see that successful passage of Senate Memorial 1 and the Interagency Task Force meet. On the Interagency Task Force, we helped facilitate and coordinate that. And we're really fortunate that the Outdoor Learning Bill was named as a recommendation from the task force to the Legislative Education Study Committee in November. There are so many other places that we have embedded this information into other policies, this need for outdoor learning and establishing this program at the Public Education Department. And here we are today with seeing Senate Bill 32 officially introduced into the state Senate. Again, there's so many pieces that have gone into this work. We have outdoor learning guidance, case studies from around the state, Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way that I'm going to get into here in a moment. We have this incredible resource in the state of outdoor and environmental learning, which we've worked with our partners on the Forest Service on, that has identified over 400 programs around the state that currently serve over 280,000 kids in New Mexico. So we have a better understanding of who's being served, how and in what ways, with what content. There's just such a richness of resources. And the time really is now for us to move this work forward that we've done and focused so much on the last few years of being community-centered, bringing systems thinking in, and this focus on justice, equity, and inclusion, especially through hosting community conversations. Again, over 4 years of community conversations, hundreds of individuals. At this point, over 100 organizations, groups, schools have been represented, and 36 EE&M fellows. If you want to know more about our EE&M fellowship, I'm going to ask Steph to drop a link into the chat, because there's so much in that program, and just my appreciation goes out to all of our fellows who have engaged in this incredible systems thinking work over the last few years. I won't get into all the pieces of Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way, but I do want to mention that Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way is the country's first shared vision and strategy to support daily equitable access to the outdoors and environmental learning for all kids. Policy recommendation number 1, which can be found on page 5, specifically states resource an Office of Outdoor and Environmental Education at the state level to support teachers and school staff. Senate Bill 32 specifically is aligned with this recommendation. The fellows, through systems thinking, systems mapping, prioritize this. And once we see this realized, our 4 other policy recommendations are going to be that much more easy to see realized and actualized. In the advocacy toolkit, and we're going to go through this today, we have lots of information about many other structural pieces. We've got information on Senate Memorial 1, more information about Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way, the sign-on letter that we supported this past fall that many of you engaged with us on that effort. We also have the outdoor learning case studies that our incredible director of strategy, Tally, put together this past fall, as well as a reference to the state of outdoor and environmental learning. Lots of structural pieces in place. Again, here's my contact information. Our hope for today, we're kind of starting off, why this bill, why today? You're going to hear in a moment from our partners at Wild Friends and the Math and Science Advisory Committee. And then we're going to go into details around all different ways that you can engage in this advocacy effort for us to hopefully in a few weeks be doing a big community celebration to see the outdoor learning program begin to be realized at the Public Education Department. Sue, I'd love to pass it along to you next to tell us a little bit about Wild Friends, please.
Great. Thank you, Eileen, and welcome to everybody. It's so gratifying to see such a good turnout today in support of Senate Bill 32. So yes, I'm the director of the Wild Friends program. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Wild Friends, I'm going to do just a really quick overview, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the bill after the Math and Science Advisory folks get to talk. So Wild Friends is a civics and science experiential education program for students in grades 4 through 12 across the state of New Mexico. We're based at the UNM School of Law. We've been around for 30 years now. This is our 30th year. Each year, the students vote to work on a topic of wildlife conservation, and For the past 2 years, the topic has been outdoor classrooms. Last year, as Eileen mentioned, the students drafted and helped to pass Senate Memorial 1, which set the stage for where we are now. And they didn't actually draft the Senate Bill 32 this year because it's a funding bill, and it's just the logistics of it, but they did draft the memorial from last year, and that was super fun. And it's just great to see them be able to continue the work, especially at this high level when it comes to funding. So even though they didn't draft the legislation, they are going to be part of the advocacy for it. After students learn about their topic from a science and education standpoint, then we work on civics and the 3 branches of government, so that they're prepared when they come to Santa Fe at the start of each legislative session. Of course, the last 2 years, they were not able to go to Santa Fe, and they won't be able to this year either, but they are participating virtually, and we've done that fairly successfully. You know, there's bumps in it in the process, but they're there, and they will be there again this year. So the students talk to district legislators, they testify as experts at committee hearings, they're there for floor votes, they send letters, they learn how to use their voice, and they've been very successful over the years. 70% of the legislation that the Wild Friends have worked on in the last 30 years have passed. So I don't want to get expectations too high, but we're super hopeful that this year will be included in the successful passage rate. And part of that success comes from the fact that the students really are committed to what they're doing. They're engaged, they're precious as well. But the legislators respect, I think, the work that they do, and they've come to recognize them and know the Wild Friends for being committed to doing practical on the ground work at the legislature. And this year will be no exception, I'm sure. So we'll get into the details of the bill in just a minute, but that's sort of where Wild Friends is in the process. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Molly.
I guess it helps if I unmute myself. Thank you so much, Susan, and thanks for all the work you all do. It's been incredible to watch the movement forward because of young people, which is really exciting. And Eileen, too. Thanks for all the work that EENM has put behind this. This is something near and dear to my own heart. So I'm here to speak today along with Marcia on MSAC, and MSAC is the Math and Science Advisory Council. The purpose of MSAC is to advise the PED, the state, and the legislature on issues surrounding math and science education K-12 and computer science education K-8. So we're really excited to come out in support of this, and you'll hear more about that from Marcia here in a moment. But we're a very diverse group of individuals. We have 4 representatives of public schools with math and science teachers, administrators. We have members that are from post-secondary institutions around the state, 4 members from the private sector or nonprofits, and then 1 member who's Marcia, who once again is next, who speaks on behalf of the Partnership for Math and Science Education. So Marcia, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Molly. And the Math and Science Council was created 15 years ago at the same time that the Math and Science Bureau was created. And we are actually in statute, which is why we still exist as an advisory council. So the advisory council was created, as Molly said, to advise. We have no real power, but we advise. And The Math and Science Council is very excited about this bill because it supports several of our priorities that we think will help student achievement in New Mexico. So Molly, next slide. And you may have seen this in various forms, but we are really both interested in having students outdoors in a learning environment, and also, especially during these times, I don't know if any of you heard Senator Hemphill speak, but from her perspective as a school psychologist, the amount of stress that students are under now, and probably will be for some time to come, outdoor learning can help with that. And it's not just about science, it's for all subjects, which dovetails with another MSAC priority, which is to integrate science more with interdisciplinary core subjects. And so this outdoor learning bill really hits a couple of our priorities. This integration, having students in elementary school have science, and also to connect more with informal science educators, because we recognize that the science and math ecosystems are not just limited to the classroom. And so this hits several of our priorities. I'm not going to read these bullet points because I know that that's one of my pet peeves when somebody reads to me. Although I'll leave that there. But I want you to know that we had a few hundred of these postcards printed, and that we are, if you are thinking about going in person to the legislature, MSAC will be represented in the committee meetings to give our opinion in support of this bill. And if you would like this postcard, Molly showed the front. MSAC supports outdoor learning, and then this is the back. If you would like some copies of this, if you are planning on seeing a legislature, you can contact me in person, just text me, and my number is there. So Molly, did you want to add anything?
No, just wanted to open it up if anybody has any questions about MSAC or why we're supporting this. It's a statewide set of members, so it's exciting to have this kind of another group that is wholeheartedly behind this bill. Although behind the ideas behind the bill, we can't support a specific bill.
Great. Thank you so much, Sue, for the overview of Wild Friends, and Molly and Marcia for your sharing on the Math and Science Advisory Council. Again, it's just so incredible to see all of these different supports in place and so much enthusiasm for this bill. And I'm going to actually pause our recording.
All right, so Senate Bill 32, yay. I'm like Eileen, I'm just so excited that we've made it to this point. And yes, the most critical piece is to come, but I really want to echo what she has said about the long process it has taken to get here. And every part of it has been gratifying. But this just feels especially exciting. So, so thank you to all of you for helping us continue on this journey, for helping us get to where we are and to continue. So Senate Bill 32, here's the nitty gritty of what's in it. It's a funding request bill. It asks for $500,000, and that 500 grand is broken down in a couple different ways. The 200,000 to go to fund 2 full-time positions at the Public Education Department, one for an outdoor learning specialist and another for an outdoor learning assistant, and then $300,000 to go to materials and teacher training. It's fairly simple in terms of its language. But I think that as you speak with legislators, they're going to want to know how much money are you asking for, and what specifically, what specifically does it ask for? Where would the money go? Senate Bill 32 is sponsored by Senator Saya Correa Hemphill from Silver City. She was the sponsor of Senate Memorial 1 last year, and she is super committed to this topic. And this is a big priority for her to try to get it passed this year. Luckily, unlike many other sessions this year, New Mexico actually has a lot of money. So I'm hopeful that this will be able to get through the process because there's money and because we have a really great sponsor. The bill has already been assigned to committees on the Senate side. It actually got assigned to the Senate Committees Committee, which it's already passed out of. That's just to determine whether it's germane, meaning is it relevant to a budget session, and it was determined to be germane. So next stop is the Senate Education Committee. If it passes from there, then it goes to Senate Finance. Senate Education does not have it scheduled yet, but that's not a surprise because we are very early in the session. But we will keep in touch with the senator, and Senator Bill Sewells from Las Cruces is the chair of Senate Education. And so I know he'll work closely with the Senator Correa Hemphill and keep us all in the loop, but we'll get you that information. So as soon as it gets assigned to a hearing date, that's when we'll really dig into contacts with legislators. And I'll talk about more of what that outreach looks like in just a minute. One more quick thing though about the path of this bill. It's possible that at some point in the cycle on the Senate side, the bill is going to get folded into House Bill 2, which is the big budget bill. Honestly, I don't understand exactly how the budget is created and made. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on with that. But I trust our senator, and she is in close contact with people in the know, and getting it folded into House Bill 2 at some point, I think will be of benefit, because then the whole package goes along. But we'll keep you posted. And again, in the meantime, we're going to make sure that it gets passed through its currently assigned committees. So that's the bill.
So I do just want to point out for folks, just so that people know what I was highlighting and trying to show as Sue was sharing, that again, I'm in the advocacy toolkit, and we have three main sections in here, kind of a big overview of the legislative process and some great resources and really cool video tours of the roundhouse and the grounds and the art, the incredible artwork that's housed in the roundhouse. And then we have information specific to advocating for this bill. And again, that why this outdoor learning bill section. And so a lot of the information that Sue just went over is in this first link, the Outdoor Learning Program, SB 32, bill overview and tips. So you can see information about what is in the bill and just information around, where you can see updates. We do have in the toolkit, Stephanie Hanamato has generously created this great table so we can keep tracking, so folks know where things are. And we'll be reaching out through our communication channels through EENM and Wild Friends to let folks know once we know when things will be hitting committees. But just want to make sure that everybody knows that there's this great overview document available in the toolkit that has a lot of what Sue just shared. So before we get into, I guess, the specifics of things, just wanted to pause to see if anybody has any questions, I guess, about the bill and what we expect in terms of where it's heading and kind of how it will move through the legislature. All right.
So I have a question, comment.
Mhm.
So at the same time that the Math and Science Advisory Council was created, there was something called the Math and Science Proficiency Fund that was created in law, in statute, and which would be a mechanism for the funds to carry over from year to year. And I'm not sure if now is the time to show you that statute, or if it's just irrelevant at this point.
Sue, I'm going to look to you
No,
for the
I'm not
statute question.
sure. I mean, I think that's a good point, Marcia. Perhaps a link to that statute could be put into the toolkit.
Yep.
Okay.
But good to know that statute is there.
Yeah, it's the same statute, and it would be administered by the PED, and you can find the statute. It's 3 pages. It's non-reverting, and it can be through a legislative award.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we can add that into the toolkit. Thanks.
Mhm.
And I do see a question around bipartisan support that I think is really worth us addressing. And I will say, and I know Sue, you can really speak to this from Wild Friends, but from an EE&M perspective, that we've seen really broad bipartisan support for outdoor and environmental education, and are really seeking that for this bill as well, and really hope to see that. Even when we presented in November to the Legislative Education Study Committee, we saw strong bipartisan support. So I think that's a really key piece to this bill. And we want people to reach out to as many different legislators as possible to see that level of support. Sue, what would you say to that question around bipartisan support?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Eileen. Last year, Senate Memorial 1 passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. I think there were two members that voted against it out of 112. So I think that bodes well. But I will also say that this is where you all come in, and where the advocacy piece comes in, because the legislators need to know about this and be informed that it's coming through the process, and that they also need to know that there's a lot of public support for it, because that helps influence their decision as well.
So Sebastian has a question, and I think is a great cue for us to get into our next section of what are we asking you to do? How do you do this? When and how? So Sebastian, I think we'll answer your question here in the next few minutes, and thanks for posing it. So again, we're going to walk through the toolkit, and what we really wanted to provide are ways for people to really help see each of our individual roles in this advocacy effort. So there's opportunities to engage through phone calls, emails, even writing letters to your legislators. There'll be opportunities to engage real time in committee hearings. And we wanted to provide tips of these different ways that you can communicate with legislators to voice your support in ways that are relevant and authentic to you. And I think one of our big hopes with this, and it's one of the things that I really love about the Wild Friends program in particular, is we live in a state that our voice really does matter at the legislature. I can't even begin to share how many times I have showed up at the Roundhouse, and sometimes I've been the only voice in support or against a bill. And being that one voice really does make a difference. We have a real opportunity to engage in this process. And I think a lot of the information that we're going to be providing will be really helpful for this bill. And I hope it really helps everyone to help build the confidence to use your voice, to show up and support other issues that are near and dear to your own hearts and your values as well. So we're going to chat through some different ways to engage with people real time, but then also just engage with legislators through phone calls and emails and things like that. And again, we'll kind of walk you through the toolkit. And I'm thinking first, Sue, if we maybe just kind of go over, and again, I'm going to reference the one pager that I shared to really just talk through some general tips. Thinking maybe if we go big of if people want to engage live in real time first, and then we can kind of pull back for written communication and phone calls. How does that feel?
Sure, that's fine. that probably means we need to talk a little bit about the logistics up at the Roundhouse this year.
Yes, so let me pull up, and again, this is in the toolkit. But we have put in some information here, I think, to really help guide people around what to expect for the session. And one of the things I really can't highlight enough is that things are changing and evolving. I really appreciate, Sue, your expertise and all the thinking and thoughts that you put in here to help people be prepared if people do want to show up in person. And we can't emphasize enough that things do keep changing. So we're providing the information that we know that is available today, but that information might be different tomorrow or next week. And especially for in-person attendance, we really do encourage folks to follow at the legislature website that's listed here to understand the most up-to-date information. We do know as of today that people are able to access the Roundhouse. You can show up. You must show proof of vaccination and that you've received a booster shot. This year, for the first time, no firearms. That's a very clear thing, are not allowed into the Roundhouse. And Sue, is there anything else that you just want to highlight around just kind of some of these logistics if people do want to show up in person?
Sure. So with regard to the booster, I mean, of course, it's only a booster's only required if you're eligible for it. If the time hasn't passed yet, then that's not required. So yes, in person is allowed. The House, though, has decided that all of its committee hearings are going to be virtual. So once Senate Bill 32 makes it over to the House side, you can still talk to your district folks in person and still go up there, but just know that participation in a committee will be virtual on the House side. The Senate is going to do a hybrid model of some in person and some that's virtual. In person, they may limit the number of people who can be in a committee room, although they're going to use larger committee rooms so that people can spread out, and that way they can keep the numbers to high enough to be able to accommodate folks that want in.
Mm-hmm. I think the other piece I'd want to highlight too is as soon as we know, we being EENM and Wild Friends have information, each committee typically for the virtual participation, at least this is based on last year, has a little bit different protocol for how people can engage then via Zoom in the virtual environment. As soon as we know that for each committee, we will share that out through our communication channel so that people are very clear of, here is the process to engage virtually for Senate education. I will say from the EENM perspective that we are not planning on attending anything in person, that we're planning on engaging remotely and taking advantage of that virtual option, which in some ways is a real benefit that we saw, increased participation last year when things were remote. And of course, being such a large state, we hope that this maybe will open up the door for more folks, especially since we've got so many great folks from Las Cruces today joining us to make it a little bit easier to participate live for the committee hearings as well. And we'll go over some scripts and things so that people can feel even more familiar with what things look like in real time. But we have provided some tips here for folks to be aware of, again, for the live committee hearings and opportunities to provide live public comment in real time. We'll provide some scripts that you can feel free to take and edit yourself and make relevant to your own experience. One thing I will say that I think is really helpful for people to think about is some of the formalities of what it means for those committee hearings around addressing. Typically when addressing committees, you start with either Madam Chair or Mr. Chair and members of the committee. And we want to just provide tips around, typically a lot of people wear suits and really do dress up when we're at the Roundhouse. It's true also for Zoom in terms of how we present ourselves. And also that awareness of pausing and taking a look around to make sure that your background is set in a way that feels appropriate to share with legislators. Sue, other thoughts or tips just in a general way around the live public comment opportunities?
Um, no, I think that's helpful. You know, if you're at the Roundhouse, um, even though the public access is, as Eileen mentioned, it's just phenomenal in New Mexico. Because of the pandemic, even though they're live, or in person, yes, they're alive, but they're going to keep, certain areas are going to be closed. Like normally the floor is open to the public before and after sessions. They're going to have the floor completely closed. You can certainly watch proceedings in the gallery. I think the best way to find a legislator at this point is to go to their office. And if they're not there, they have an assistant who can take a message, or we always carry little note cards, actually fairly big note cards, to write what our request is and that we were there, and those get handed to the legislator. So maybe taking note cards with you and going directly to a legislator's office.
Great, thanks. So another thing that we want to highlight in terms of, again, scripts, I've mentioned some draft scripts, is that EENM and Wild Friends have drafted some sample scripts for folks to feel free to use and add your own voice to this. Again, for those opportunities during committee hearings, but then we'll get into how to provide written comments or make phone calls and what that can look like as well. So you'll see here in this link that I just clicked for the draft scripts, you can see an example draft script for a committee hearing. Typically, when people do provide public comment during those committee hearings, the chair will be very clear of how much time you have. Often it's 2 minutes, but depending upon the number of people and the number of items on the agenda, that might be 1 minute, or in some cases, if they're really wanting to move quickly, it might even be 30 seconds. So I would say one thing to consider when drafting your script to use is to really be careful with timing yourself to make sure that you fit within allotted time limits that might be put for providing that public comment. Anything else, Sue, that you can think of for committee hearings?
No, I think that covers it. I think, yeah, short and sweet is the best. And we always try to make sure that the students end whatever they're saying with a request. Please support Senate Bill 32. Please vote yes in favor of Senate Bill 32. So make it specific what you're asking for.
Thanks. And to loop back to Sebastian's question, we want to really encourage all of you to start reaching out to legislators now, even though we don't know when the Education Committee will be doing the committee hearing on this. I'm going to go back to this one pager again to remind folks that in here you can look up who is your representative and who is your senator. This is a great opportunity to start building a relationship with the people who are representing you. And please feel free to start reaching out now and sharing and encouraging their support of Senate Bill 32. It's really helpful to begin that process through email, phone calls. Every legislator is a little different in terms of how they like to be communicated with. So it's a good opportunity to learn, what is the preferred method of communication for your representative and senator. Specifically for the committees, you can see who serves on different committees, and through our communications, we'll be really clear of here are the legislators that we want you to reach out to for Senate Education Committee, specifically in preparation for when the bill is moving through that committee. But again, we encourage people to start reaching out now. We provided a written draft script. There's no reason that people couldn't use this also for making a phone call as well. And reaching out to their legislators. So this is helpful to start reaching out to your own representative and senator right now. And then as we know more about when committee hearings are scheduled, we'll provide information and you'll see us reach out saying, all right, it's about to hit the Senate Education Committee. Here's the list of senators and their contact information. We want you to reach out and email these senators, and especially if you're one of their constituents, to encourage their support. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to look to Sue to see if you have any other tips and tricks for, again, how to show up that we can think of. And we're going to look to see if there's questions.
Yeah. Oh, I had a thought, but let's see. Nope, I'm going to take questions here and then I'll circle back.
So while folks are thinking if they have any questions, one other thing I do want to highlight in terms of other ways to advocate is that quite a few of our legislators are on social media and do look at social media and what's happening. And so in response to that, I'm going to go back to our toolkit here. And Stephanie Hanamato has put together this really incredible social media toolkit within the toolkit for us all to start using now. And in the social media toolkit, you can see a link to a variety of graphics that you can grab and use on your own social media right now as an individual, or if you're a representative of your organization or school and have the permission to share these things. She's created this whole series of really beautiful graphics showing support in different ways around supporting Senate Bill 32, as well as some text to include with those graphics as well. So you'll see post one, the text there will go with the graphic one. And I'm going to pause just to see, Steph, I'm going to put you on the spot just to see if there's anything else that you want to add around the social media advocacy opportunity as well.
No, you explained it really well, Eileen. I would just add, we really encourage you to do this because with these hashtags, folks are searching like what is going on in the New Mexico legislature right now. And so, if you do this, others will see it and potentially share it as well.
Thanks so much. So those are available for people to start using now. So Sebastian, I'm going to loop back to make sure that Sebastian feels like he got the response he needed for yes, please reach out now. And also just want to see if there's other questions that have come up.
And while those questions are coming in, I remembered what I was going to say, which is that there's a link in the toolkit for you all as you reach out to legislators to let us know what you're hearing. That feedback is really helpful for us. Like, are you hearing support? Are you getting questions that you need answers to that couldn't be answered, that were difficult? And there is a fact sheet in the toolkit. This is the fact sheet from the Wild Friends students that we create a fact sheet every year of like, we try to anticipate, like, what are some of the questions that a legislator might have? So not only what's in the bill and why is it needed, but what are other states doing? New Mexico legislators always want to know what's happening regionally, especially what are surrounding states doing. So that can be a reference source for you. But if you get questions that aren't on this fact sheet, please let us know, because again, we'll come up with some answers and we'll share those back out with you, because the more informed we all are, the better through this process.
Thanks. And Nancy put in a question, and you were already touching upon it, Sue, with linking to the Wild Friends fact sheet. I also want to highlight that we do have FAQs about outdoor learning. So this question around school gardens and outdoor classrooms and how those things interact. We have lots of answers already to those questions. And I really love that Tally put in the incredible outdoor classrooms case studies that also highlight some really cool garden programs around the state. So I hope, Nancy, that you'll find that helpful for really thinking about that relationship and how we view it. And one other piece I do want to highlight that's in the toolkit that we haven't touched upon is we want to know how you're reaching out. And so we do have a form available that you can let us know who you reached out to, how you reached out to that legislator, and if there were any questions or anything that's helpful for us to know. We want to have that feedback loop. So we do have that also available in the toolkit as well. Great. I see that Jordan has a really great question. Do you have advice on key talking points beyond support this bill? I have some thoughts, but Sue, I'm going to look to see if you want to add anything first.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, we try to make sure that the students always hit on what is the bill asking for? Why is the bill needed? Why? So, because honestly, last year we had a couple of legislators who said, why do we have to throw money at this? When I was a kid, we would just go outside as a class and sit under a tree. So, addressing concerns like that might come up. As I mentioned, pointing out that what other states are doing, that New Mexico would not be the first state to be doing this, but because of the amazing resources culturally and geographically that we have, New Mexico could be a leader. That's a really good key talking point. And then just also talking about the benefits of outdoor classrooms in general, especially during a pandemic, but even post-pandemic, the benefits of outdoor classrooms are just almost too numerous to mention. Emotional, physical, social, and all the ways that our students have suffered over these past couple years. Much of that could have been helped if they could have been outside with their classmates.
Yeah, and yes to all of that. And I would also say that we have built some of those key talking points from an EENM Wild Friends perspective into those draft scripts by design to hit some of those pieces. And I will say in particular, I think those social media posts that Steph has put together, really those are those main 5 key talking points. And Jordan, I know you so well know because of the work that you do. And since you were one of the key individuals who helped create Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way, that I'm sure that there are key talking points that would be relevant to your work and things that you'd want to highlight individually from your perspective as well.
Great. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I think, yeah, part of the point is, as you both talked about, is there are a lot of potential points to emphasize. And sometimes when you try to say too much, then the message gets bogged down or lost. So I think that's helpful. And I'll look more at these points that you have on the website.
Thanks so much for that question and reflection back, Jordan.
Eileen, could I add something?
Of course, please.
Okay. This is Jordan and I were in another meeting, and this is the thing I didn't say, but like and I missed the beginning about this meeting, so I don't know if it's already been addressed, but like the bill didn't, these ideas didn't come out of nowhere. They came out of a lot of strategic community meetings over years and years, and they are listed as, direct priorities in Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way, which has also been, many of those priorities have been like adopted into other state level plans and strategic plans and reports and whatnot, like the Cradle to Career and the SCORE, which I can never remember what that stands for state parks. So I think even if there is like one key topic, is that there's a lot of communities, like voice behind this need, and it's a policy recommendation that came from the community.
I support that 1000%. Thank you for so eloquently saying that, Tally. Marcia, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that the Public Education Department is in full support of creating these positions, and including the Secretary of Education, Dr. Steinhaus. And these positions would be housed in the Math and Science Bureau. So that circles back around to that Math and Science Proficiency Fund. So take a look there. But it's not a talking point, but that is really a strong point for the passage of this bill, that the PED supports it so fully.
Mm-hmm. So just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. We hope that you find the advocacy toolkit helpful. We'll follow up and share out those links. And as we move to closing, Sue, just any other, you've already offered so many words of wisdom, but Sue, any other words of wisdom that you want to offer?
Just speak from your heart. I think legislators really appreciate hearing genuine expressions of support. And you all have a lot of heart. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Again, just much appreciation and gratitude for all of you who have contributed to get us here today, the many years, and we've arrived here, and now we're hopefully just a few weeks out from hosting some really great celebrations around the state to see this actualized for all of us. Feel free to reach out with any questions, and we just really appreciate all of the efforts that you all are undertaking right now in many different ways. And I'll stop the recording, but we'll stick around for any other thoughts or questions. Thanks so much, everyone.